a long day of work, my flatmate and I decided to unwind with a movie. With tasty fruit, a delicious cheese platter, and flavorful red wine at hand, we expected nothing but a relaxing evening. We quickly scanned through the movie list and chose True Spirit. The movie follows the journey of a 16-year-old girl who dreams of sailing around the world. Despite facing prejudice and doubt, she succeeded and became a global sensation. What an inspiring movie! However, that's not what I remember most about the movie. Here is the scene that hit me hard. The scene where the main character's father is anxiously waiting for news about her. When the movie reached this scene, subconsciously, I turned to my friend and asked, I wonder if my father also worries about me like this when I'm away? As the question left my lip, I laughed it off. But as the question lingered, tears began to stream down my face. I guess this is where Netflix and chill transformed into Netflix and chill, isn't it? Reverse the timeline and go back to when I was still a little child. One night, my parents and I were on the bed playing tickle. We laughed so hard that our belly hurt. That night was awesome. I remember my mom was wearing a pink t-shirt. The very next day, however, that same pink t-shirt was torn to shreds when my dad beat my mom up. There were so many screams, curses, and broken things. My mom stood at the door, looking at me with bruises and tears. Outside, I heard my dad start his scooter and drive away. Fast forward to just last year when I was a 22-year-old woman. One night, my dad used an iron rod to beat my mom in the head. Upon receiving the call, I rushed to the hospital in the middle of the night, where I found my mother covered in blood, and once again, in the pink t-shirt. I bet like pink a lot, huh? Not the same pink t-shirts I saw when I was still a little child, but the situation was no different after decades. I was so used to seeing violence in my family. But I wasn't just a witness. Did your kindergarten separate classes into different levels, like sprout, bud, and leaf? Mine did. I was in sprout class, so I must have been 3 years old. There was a caregiver who I still remember to this day. Her name was Hun. One afternoon, Miss Hun was changing my clothes and noted the bruises on my body. So she asked me what happened, and I just honestly answered, my dad hit me. It was truly fortunate that on that afternoon, do you know who picked me up from school? Yeah, that's right, my father. Miss Hun rushed out and convinced him, Anne, don't hit me. She's just a little child. As soon as we got home, I was beaten again for speaking up about my dad's abusive behavior. From then on, I rarely shared with anyone the fact that I was often physically and emotionally abused at home. I had already learned the hard way that speaking up doesn't always lead to protection and might even make things worse. Or maybe, as a 3 years old, I didn't feel ashamed to talk about it. But as I have gotten older and become more self-conscious, I haven't wanted to risk being judged or ridiculed. The truth is, there wasn't anything particularly interesting or exciting about my situation, so why bother telling anyone? All right, let's close our eyes and imagine together. You are walking in a forest and you see a lion. How will your body react? Stress hormones will be released, so your heart starts to bow. Tum, tum. Your pupil dilate and your airway open up. At this point, you have at least two options: fight or flight. What if the lion come home every night, eating with you, sharing your home, or occasionally whispering sweet nothing to you? It's difficult to imagine, but for some people, this is their reality. If I were to tell you about every single violent scene that I have ever been through in my life, we might be here all day. Witnessing violence and being the direct victim of violence is so terrifying. However, that's still not the scariest thing. Well, what could be even more frightening? Can you guess? It is seeing the seed of violence within yourself. Cooking with my younger brother, he messed it up and I called him stupid. Grandfather asked for help sending an email, but he didn't understand, so I got frustrated. Eating out and being served the wrong dish, I get grumpy. The scariest thing is that just after every time the hurtful word come out, I am immediately aware of what I have done. I feel a sense of regret, disappointment, and sadness. I have thousands of self-critical thoughts about myself. Believe me, I really want to kill that part of myself. So, by realizing the problem, I have gradually tried to control my emotions and my interaction with people around me. I meditate, I do yoga, I write, I surround myself with nature and do many other things. It helped improve a little bit, but it's still totally difficult, and I still tend to get angry. One day, my mom and I had a heated argument, and she said, "You are just like your father." It really made me angry. It wasn't just because of what my mom said, but because I couldn't accept that. It was the truth. Yes, I have seen the lion within me. I can be the lion. I am the lion, or I have become the lion. What's wrong with me? So I turned to the internet for answers, and here is what I found. Childhood trauma can affect brain development. People with childhood trauma react more strongly to stress and feel difficulty getting along with others. They may also have a reduced ability to control their own emotions and aggression, and also have a decreased sensitivity to the emotion of others. Well, if I had a better childhood, my life would be easier. I would be happier and more successful. It's not fair when someone's mistakes are affecting my present and future. But that's not all. People with childhood trauma are at triple the lifetime risk of developing heart disease and lung cancer, and may have a 20 years difference in life expectancy. For depressions, the risk is 4.5 times higher. For taking their own life, it is 12 times higher. Right! These findings only served to reinforce my low self-esteem. The more I learned, the more hopeless and meritless I felt. I'm broken and can't be fixed. Or maybe I'm wrong, because here is the best part of the story. There were days just like any other. The air was thick with tension. My boyfriend and I had a heated argument. I could feel my heart racing, my blood boiling, and my mind clouded by anger. In a moment of blind fury, I let out mean words which I knew would cut him deeply. The look on his face, crestfallen and powerless, made me feel a sudden jolt of remorse. It was as if a switch had been flipped, and I was immediately aware of the gravity of my action. "I'm sorry," I muttered. My voice was barely above a whisper. "My family is broken. That's why I get like this, you know that?" It was an admission of my inability to change my quick-tempered nature, a bitter pill to swallow. At that moment, I expressed my belief that it might be better for him to distance himself from me, as I felt like I had caused him pain, and of course, he deserved much better. At that moment, I felt like I had compromised with something I had always despised, violence. And that's when his response shook me to my core. You got me here with you. It takes time to heal. We will work on it together. Calmly, gently. In the face of my anger, he has shown me acceptance, patience, and love. I felt a glimmer of hope in my bleak outlook. You know, it's him who drove me to the hospital to see my mom in the middle of the night. It's him who was with me at the courthouse when my parents were getting divorced. It's him who sits there in silence and hold me tight whenever I cry. He had always been there for me. He the witness, the supporter, and sometimes also the sufferer of my own healing journey. I reflect upon years ago when I clumsily created a mess and the homestay owner where I used to work helped me clean it up with her gentleness. Or when I panicked in a difficult situation, a friend of mine calmed me down with his own calmness. Or when I felt irritable, a classmate of mine lifted me up with his smile. I have experienced so many moments like that in my life, but I'm so occupied with the appearance of pain that I forgot about the moment of love sometimes. In the face of anger, hurt, vulnerability, clumsiness, or negativity, it can be so easy to react with more of the same. But choosing kindness and love can be a far more powerful force. When people choose to react with love, acceptance, and patience, they help break the cycle of negativity. There is always a choice to react with anger or to respond with love. To me, these moments are my rays of light. The light lifted me up from the wreckage, brought me the new language of love, and helped reprogram my internal software. It's time to hold on to these rays of light and let the negative go. You know, I also see rays of light in the stories of people around me. My personal trainer once offered up to me that he struggled with addiction in his teens and 20s. But when his cousin introduced him to weightlifting, he became passionate about fitness and then replaced holding drugs with dumbbell. Now, he is a very thoughtful PT, a tall, muscular gym addict who lives happily with his beautiful son and wife. Another kind friend of mine shared with me that he had to learn to be independent since a very young age after his father passed away. To cope with his loneliness, he watched a lot of Hong Kong movies like Thiên Long Bát Bộ, Kim Ngọc Mãn Đường, Bước ngoặt cuộc đời. Is there any Hong Kong movie fans? And that's how my friend learned about heroism and how to treat people with honor. It is ridiculously simple, but it's warmed my heart. They both came from dark places, but then they found their light, and they created a bright future. Now, I have calmly embarked on a self-healing journey. I accept that I have problems, but firmly believe that change is possible. It dawned on me that those scientific facts are meant to raise awareness in our society to help people like me realize the problem and strive for positive change, rather than self-suggesting negative outcomes and falling short. I also learned that my father's abusive behavior was the result of being physically abused by his own sibling and mom since childhood. A father who never received proper love may struggle to love his own loved one properly. And that's my responsibility to stop the generational trauma from being passed down. Of course, It still takes a lot of courage to dig deep into the pen. But luckily, not only the pen, I also found understanding. This is a photo of me in Singapore, participating in a competition when I was 18 years old. I thought that I didn't have this photo because at that time, my father refused to sign the consent form for me to go. I was so devastated because, as a father, he was supposed to be proud and support my journey rather than block the way. But here you see the photo because a few days later, he eventually signed. Of course, I was a little bit surprised, but I didn't care much about the reason. When I was in Singapore, he often texted me to ask how I was doing. Last year, in a very random conversation, I learned through my mother's account that my father had refused to sign the consent form because he was afraid that I would be tricked overseas. After my mom asked my ex-high school sweetheart to investigate information about the contest, he finally felt at ease to sign. So, returning to my question, my old question in this movie scene, I wonder if my father also worry about me like this when I'm away? Now, I do strongly believe that I have the answer. Yes, he does worry about me. Although it's still been a long time since I talked to my father, although I still can't empathize or forgive him completely, I have come to understand him a bit better. This healing journey is still long, isn't it? To be honest, I have been struggling with the decision of whether or not to share these personal details. Too personal. I feel anxious, even after finishing this speech, even when standing here on stage. I am afraid of being judged, of being hurt, and of showing my vulnerabilities. But I'm so happy that I did. Preparing this speech has been a part of my own healing journey. It gives me the opportunity to express my gratitude to all the blessings that I have received, to honor the bravery of those survivors, and to remember those who have lost their life to this issue. And most importantly, I do believe that those in difficult circumstances, violence, loss, toxic relationship, or feeling a lack of meaning and purpose in life, are able to find strength in my story in their own way. Let's look out of our self-created prison and find the rays of light. The light can come from anyone. Find someone you trust, someone who is close enough so that you know they won't judge you. Share your problem with them. The light can come from anything. Find a spark, a passion, a hobby that brings you joy and connect you with like-minded people. In my story, I gave myself the courage to observe, accept my problem, and actively seek change. When someone offered to help, I took their hands, so the light can even come from within ourselves. Here is one baby step to find the light within. It works for me, so I hope it works for you too. Are you ready? Whenever you are tired or hopeless, just close your eyes and breathe. I know it sounds so cliche, but please, just feel your heart pounding and be aware that you are still alive. That's a blessing. And as long as you are still alive, you can do whatever you want with your life. Also, please bear in mind that the light can shine, but even when it wants to, you have to invite it. And most of the time, it's not the light as bright at noonday. It's just enough light for the best ahead. So, be open-minded and keep going. This process requires effort on your side too. Finally, I want to hug my 3 years old V, and also the vulnerable part of you, and say, let's end the silence. You are loved, not alone, and healing is possible. Thank you, and I am V.